If you have ever felt like a ghost in your own home, invisible, until someone needs your wallet or a hot meal, you know exactly how I felt for the last 2 years. My name is Teresa. I am 65 years old, and up until a few months ago, I thought my biggest challenge was learning how to sleep in a quiet house after my husband passed away. But I was wrong. My biggest challenge was standing in my own kitchen, looking at a bank app on my phone, and realizing my own flesh and blood had drained $15,000 from my account. It happened right after our annual family reunion. I hosted it at my house, the home my late husband and I paid off a decade ago. But if you asked my daughter-in-law Jessica, it was her house. She directed the caterers, rearranged my living room furniture, and accepted compliments on the garden I had spent 20 years cultivating. My son Liam just stood by the grill, soaking up the praise. I stayed quiet, washing dishes in the background. I told myself it was just easier to let them take the spotlight. Liam and Jessica had moved in with me temporarily 18 months ago to save for a down payment. Slowly, their boxes took over the basement. Then, Jessica's expensive skincare replaced my things in the master bathroom. Before I knew it, I was moved into the smaller guest room because they needed more space for their home office. I allowed it. I wanted peace. To make household expenses easier, Liam convinced me to open a joint checking account. I deposited $15,000 for property taxes, emergency repairs, and groceries. I trusted him. He was my boy. But the Monday after the reunion, I logged in to pay the utility bill. The balance stared back at me in bold, unforgiving numbers, $42.18. My heart did not pound. I didn't panic. A cold, absolute clarity washed over me. The money was gone, transferred entirely to Liam's private account. I set my coffee mug down on the granite counter. The house was quiet. They were still asleep upstairs. I didn't scream or cry. I simply waited. What they didn't realize was that my silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. Liam came downstairs around 10, yawning and scratching his stomach. Jessica trailed behind him, already glued to her phone, complaining about how exhausting the weekend had been. I sat at the kitchen island, my tablet turned toward the empty chair. I didn't offer to make them breakfast. Liam, I started, keeping my voice completely level. Where is the money from the house account? He froze mid-pour with the orange juice. Jessica looked up, annoyed that I had interrupted her scrolling. Liam let out a nervous chuckle, rubbing the back of his neck. Oh, right. I meant to tell you. Jess found this amazing deal on a contractor. We're upgrading the kitchen. The cabinets are just so dated, Mom. It's embarrassing. You took $15,000 without asking. I stated, stating a fact, not starting an argument. We didn't take it, Jessica snapped, rolling her eyes. It's an investment in the property. Besides, you just sit at home all day. You don't have anywhere to spend it. It was my money for the taxes and the roof. Liam leaned against the counter and actually laughed. A short, dismissive sound that echoed off the very cabinets he planned to tear down. Come on, Mom. Relax. We needed it more than you do right now. We're building our future. You're retired. What do you need 15 grand for knitting supplies? I looked at my son. I looked at the man he had become, standing in my kitchen, spending my money, laughing at my life. I didn't feel sad anymore. The mother who would have cried and begged for respect vanished in that exact second. Okay, I murmured. Okay? Liam asked, blinking in surprise. That's it. That's it, I replied, standing up. I picked up my tablet and walked straight to my bedroom. I closed the door until it clicked shut. I didn't threaten them. I didn't demand the money back. I sat on the edge of my bed, picked up my phone, and made one single phone call. Liam thought he had won. He didn't know that his laugh had just cost him his free ride. The phone call was to my old friend, Carol. Carol has been a real estate agent in our town for 30 years. She knows every house, every lot, and every secret in this neighborhood. Teresa, Carol answered, surprised to hear from me so early. Carol, I need you to come over tomorrow when Liam and Jessica are at work, I instructed quietly. Bring the paperwork. I am selling the house. There was a brief pause. Are you sure? Your garden, your memories. The memories are in my head, I answered firmly. The house is just bricks, and I refuse to be a squatter in my own home. Let's list it. I hung up and started my new routine. For 18 months, I had been the invisible hand that kept this household running. I did the laundry, I restocked the fridge with organic berries. Jessica demanded I paid the internet bill, the streaming services, the electricity. I was the silent engine of their comfortable lifestyle. That morning, I logged into my laptop. I removed my credit card from the shared Amazon account. I changed the Wi-Fi password. I called the utility companies and requested that the accounts be transferred out of my name by the end of the month. At noon, I walked into the kitchen. The sink was full of dirty plates from their breakfast. Normally, I would sigh and load the dishwasher. Instead, I made myself a simple sandwich on a paper plate, ate it, standing up, and left their dishes exactly where they were. When they got home from work, Jessica stormed into the kitchen. Teresa, why aren't these dishes done? And the internet is down. I didn't look up from my book. I guess you'll need to call the provider and set up an account, Jessica. And the soap is under the sink. Liam walked in, looking confused. Mom, what's going on? I'm retired, I smiled softly. I decided to actually start living like it. I flipped the page of my book. The look of sheer panic on Jessica's face was just the beginning. By Wednesday, the reality of their theft started to hit them, though they didn't fully understand it yet. Liam came knocking on my door before work. Mom, I went to get groceries yesterday and your card declined on the shared app. Did the bank make a mistake? I opened the door fully dressed for a morning walk. No mistake, Liam. The joint account is empty, remember? You used it for the contractor. Yeah, but how are we supposed to buy food? He stammered, genuinely baffled. With your paychecks, I imagine, I suggested, gently slipping past him. Have a good day at work. The truth was, they made good money, but they spent it on leased luxury cars, designer clothes, and expensive weekend trips. My $15,000 was just extra padding for their lavish lifestyle. Without my invisible financial support, their house of cards was wobbling. That afternoon, while they were at their offices, Carol came over. We walked through the house. She took photos of the high ceilings, the hardwood floors, and my beloved garden. The market is red hot right now. Carol noted, writing on her clipboard. I can have this listed privately by Friday. You won't even need an open house. But what about them? She pointed upstairs toward the master bedroom they had commandeered. They'll figure it out, I replied. When evening came, the kitchen was a disaster zone again. Jessica was slamming cabinet doors. We have no food. I had to order sushi, and it cost $80. This is ridiculous. You should really learn to meal prep. I offered from the living room, knitting calmly. Don't patronize me, she hissed. Liam talked to your mother. She's being petty about the renovation money. Liam looked at me exhausted. Mom, come on. Stop proving a point. Can you just transfer a few hundred to my account so we can get through the week? I didn't argue. I didn't bring up the stolen money again. I just looked him in the eye and said no. The silence in the room was deafening. They had never heard me say that word with such finality. They thought I was just throwing a temporary tantrum. They had no idea the countdown clock was ticking. Friday arrived. Jessica had been planning a dinner party for weeks to show off to her colleagues. Historically, these parties meant I spent 2 days prepping appetizers, roasting meats, and polishing silverware only to be banished to my room once the guests arrived, so I wouldn't ruin the vibe. Not this time. At 4 in the afternoon, Jessica rushed through the front door carrying bags of cheap decorations. She stopped dead in her tracks. The kitchen was dark. Nothing was cooking. The counters were bare. I was standing by the front door wearing my coat, holding a small overnight bag. "What is this?" Jessica demanded, her voice rising an octave. "Where is the charcuterie board? Where is the roast? People are arriving in 2 hours. I'm going to Sarah's for the weekend." I announced, mentioning my daughter who lived 3 towns over. "You can't leave," she yelled, dropping the bags. "You know I have my boss coming. You promised to cook." "I never promised anything, Jessica. You informed me you were having a party. There is a difference." Liam hurried down the stairs, tying his tie. "Mom, please. Jess is stressed. Just stay and help. We'll pay you back the 15 grand eventually, I swear. Just don't embarrass us tonight." "You embarrassed yourselves the moment you decided my money was yours," I replied calmly. "Enjoy your party." I walked out the front door, got into my paid-off Honda, and drove away. My phone buzzed constantly for the next 3 hours. Texts from Liam ranging from begging to angry. "How do you turn on the oven? Where did you hide the good plates? My boss is eating stale crackers. Mom." This is so selfish. I didn't block him. I just turned on the do not disturb mode and listened to the radio. I spent a peaceful weekend with my daughter Sarah, drinking wine and watching old movies. I told her everything. She didn't offer to call the police. She just hugged me and said, "It's about time, Mom." When I drove back on Sunday evening, I knew the dynamic in the house had permanently shifted. I was no longer the victim. I was the landlord. I returned to a house that looked like a hurricane had hit it. Sticky wine glasses on the coffee table, spilled dip on the rug, and a mountain of dishes in the sink. Liam and Jessica were on the couch, glaring at me as I walked in. "You ruined my dinner party," Jessica stated flatly. "My boss left early because we had to order cold pizza." "Your lack of preparation ruined your party." I corrected her, walking past them toward my room. Liam stood up, blocking my path. He looked angry, trying to puff his chest out to intimidate me. "Listen, you're living here with us and you need to contribute. You can't just throw a fit and disappear when we need you." I paused. I looked at the floorboards, then back up at his face. "Living here with you, Liam, whose name is on the deed to this house." He swallowed hard. "That's not the point. We're a family. The point is, you live with me." I clarified, keeping my tone deadly quiet. "You pay no rent. You pay no utilities. And recently, you took the only funds I set aside for the maintenance of this property. So let's be very clear about boundaries. My room is off limits. My groceries are off limits. And if you ever raise your voice at me in my own home again, I won't just leave for the weekend." Jessica scoffed from the couch. "What are you going to do? Kick us out? We're your only family here. You'd be totally alone." "I would rather be alone in a clean house than surrounded by users in a dirty one," I answered. I stepped around. Liam walked into my room and locked the door. I sat down at my desk and opened my email. Carol had sent me a message. "We have a cash buyer. They love the lot. They want a 30-day closing. Attached is the offer." I looked at the number. It was higher than asking price. The buyer was an older couple looking to downsize into a single-story home. They didn't even want an inspection. I clicked reply. "Accept the offer. Send the documents." The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in silent warfare. Jessica tried to freeze me out, acting like I didn't exist. Liam tried to play the peacemaker, offering half-hearted apologies, while still asking if he could borrow my car because his lease payment bounced. I handed him the bus schedule. They were drowning in their own financial incompetence. Without my money buffering their accounts, their lifestyle collapsed. The internet was shut off because neither of them wanted to put down the deposit for a new account. They ate cereal for dinner because their credit cards were maxed out. Through it all, I packed. I did it quietly. Every time I went out for groceries, I took a box of my personal items and dropped it off at a small storage unit I had rented across town. I packed my husband's tools, my favorite books, the good silverware, and the photo albums. By the third week, my room was mostly bare, but they were too self-absorbed to notice. One Tuesday evening, Liam cornered me in the hallway. He looked pale and exhausted. "Mom, the property tax bill came in the mail today. It's past due." "I know," I said. "Well, you need to pay it. There are penalties adding up." "I don't have $15,000, Liam. You spent it on invisible cabinets." "I told you, the contractor fell through." He panicked, finally admitting the truth. "We used the money to pay off Jess's credit card debt so we wouldn't get sued. We don't have it to put back." I nodded slowly. "I see. Well, that sounds like a serious problem. For you. For me, it's your house. They'll put a lien on it," he shouted. I smiled a genuine, relaxed smile. "No, they won't." I reached into my purse, pulled out a thick white envelope, and handed it to him. "Because the house is sold." Liam stared at the envelope like it was a live snake. Jessica walked into the hallway, wiping off her makeup. "What is he yelling about now?" "Open it, Liam," I instructed. He pulled out the official notice to vacate. He read the words once, twice, and then his hands started shaking. "Sold." "What do you mean, sold?" "You can't sell the house." "I already did," I stated. "The closing was yesterday. I signed the final paperwork at Carol's office while you were at work. The new owners take possession in exactly 10 days. I suggest you start packing." Jessica snatched the paper from his hands. Her eyes darted back and forth across the page, her face drained of color. "This is a joke. You're trying to scare us." "I don't play jokes with real estate, Jessica," I answered. "The house belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Henderson now. They are very eager to get into the garden." "Where are we supposed to go?" Liam demanded, his voice cracking. "We have no savings. Our credit is shot. We can't pass a background check for an apartment right now." "That sounds like a conversation you should have had before you stole my emergency fund," I replied, turning toward the kitchen. "You can't do this to us," Jessica screamed, dropping the paper. "We are family. You are throwing your own son out on the street." I stopped and looked back at her. "I am not throwing anyone anywhere. I simply sold a piece of property I owned. You are two grown adults with college degrees and full-time jobs. You will figure it out. Or you won't. But I will no longer be your safety net." I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and went to my room. For the next 10 days, the house was a chaotic nightmare, but I watched it all with detached amusement. Liam and Jessica fought constantly. They screamed about money, about the credit cards, about whose fault this was. They scrambled to find cheap apartments, getting rejected left and right because of their debt-to-income ratio. They ended up having to rent a tiny, dingy basement apartment on the bad side of town, putting down a deposit with a high-interest payday loan. They spent their evenings frantically stuffing their designer clothes into trash bags. They never apologized. They only blamed me. And that confirmed I had made the exact right choice. Moving day came quickly. I had already secured a beautiful, bright 2-bedroom condo in a senior living community near Sarah. It was paid for in cash from the house sale, with plenty left over for my retirement. I hired professional movers for my remaining furniture. They arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Liam and Jessica were hauling boxes to a rented U-Haul in the driveway, looking miserable and exhausted. Jessica's nails were chipped. Liam hadn't shaved in days. As my movers loaded my favorite armchair, Liam walked over to my car. He looked defeated. "Mom, I don't know how we're going to pay for gas to get to work this week. Could you leave us a little something from the house sale?" I leaned against my car door. I thought about the $15,000. I thought about the months of being treated like a servant. I thought about his laughter when I asked about my money. "I left you exactly what you earned, Liam." "Which is what?" he asked, desperate. "A reality check." I opened my car door and slid into the driver's seat. Jessica stormed over, slapping her hand on the hood of my car. "You're a terrible mother. You're selfish and cruel. Don't ever expect us to visit you in your little retirement home." I rolled the window down halfway. "Jessica, the greatest gift you could ever give me is your absence. Take care of yourselves." I rolled the window up, put the car in drive, and pulled out of the driveway. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't need to see their faces one last time. I only needed to look forward. The weight of the last 2 years lifted off my chest, floating away into the crisp morning air. I turned up the radio and drove toward my new life. It has been 6 months since I drove away from that house. My new condo is perfect. It smells like vanilla and fresh flowers, not stale beer and entitlement. The community here is wonderful. I play cards on Tuesdays. I read on my balcony every morning, and I sleep through the night without waking up to the sound of people taking my life for granted. Sarah visits me once a month. We go out to lunch and laugh about the past. Liam has tried to call a few times, usually at the end of the month when rent is due. I don't answer. I listen to the voicemails. He sounds stressed. He complains that Jessica is threatening to leave him because the basement apartment has a mold problem and she can't buy new shoes. He always ends the messages the same way. "Come on, Mom. We really need your help." I never call back. I simply delete the messages and go back to my garden on the balcony. I didn't need a lawyer to get justice. I didn't need to call the police to report a theft. I just needed to remember my own worth. I stopped handing them the keys to my peace of mind. If you are watching this and you are shrinking yourself to make room for people who only see you as a convenience, listen to me carefully. Stop arguing. Stop crying. Stop trying to explain your value to people who profit from making you feel worthless. Just quietly close the bank accounts. Sell the house. Take back your power. Let them laugh, let them mock you, let them think they have won. Then make your move in silence. They won't be laughing when the bill finally comes due. Thank you for watching. If my story helped you find your own strength today, hit that like button and subscribe. Remember, family is a title that should be earned every day through respect, not an excuse for exploitation. Stay strong and protect your peace.